The colony ship Endeavor's Hope moved through the darkness of space like a silver fish swimming through a black ocean. Inside its metal walls, 847 human beings slept, dreamed, and hoped for a new life on a distant world. Captain Danny Ortega stood on the bridge and watched the stars pass by. He had made this journey many times in his mind, imagining the green fields and blue waters of Catherine, the planet that would become their new home. But the universe had other plans. The first warning came as a soft beep on the control panel. Lieutenant Megan Price looked up from her station with worry in her eyes. "Captain, we have something on the sensors. Something big." Before Danny could respond, the ship shook like a toy in the hands of a giant. The lights flickered and went dark for a moment. When they came back on, everything had changed. Through the main window, Danny saw them 5 massive ships, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. They hung in space like mountains made of metal and light. Their surfaces glowed with strange colors that hurt his eyes to look at. "What are they?" Megan whispered. The answer came through every speaker on the ship. The voice was cold and empty, like wind blowing through a dead forest. "We are the Watchers. We have observed your species from the moment you first looked up at the stars. We have seen you grow and learn and reach beyond your small world. Now we will test you, as we have tested thousands of species before." Danny grabbed the communication panel. "This is Captain Danny Ortega of the colony ship Endeavor's Hope. We are peaceful explorers. We mean no harm to anyone." The voice did not seem to care about his words. "Your intentions do not matter. Only your worth matters. We will place you on the surface of the planet below. You will have no technology. You will have no tools. You will have no aid. You will survive or you will die. We will watch. We will judge." The ship began to shake again. Danny watched in horror as every screen went dark. Every light went out. Every machine stopped working. He could feel the Endeavor's Hope falling toward the planet, pulled down by invisible hands. Dr. Ben Hartley, the ship's botanist, ran onto the bridge with fear on his face. "Captain, everything is dead. The engines, the life support, the medical equipment, all of it, gone. Get everyone to the emergency stations," Danny ordered. "We are going down." The fall took less than an hour, but it felt like a lifetime. The alien ships guided them down with beams of light that held the Endeavor's Hope like a mother holding a baby. When they finally touched the ground, the doors opened by themselves. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of grass and soil and something strange that none of them had ever smelled before. The colonists stepped out onto a wide plain covered with purple and green plants. 2 suns hung in the sky, one large and orange, one small and white. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks covered with something that might have been snow. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. Katie Navarro, one of the ship's engineers, looked around with wide eyes. "Where do we even start?" Danny did not have an answer. He watched as families hugged each other, as children cried, as old people sat down on the alien grass and stared at nothing. These were his people. These were the souls he had promised to keep safe. And now they had nothing, no food, no shelter, no medicine, no weapons. Nothing but the clothes on their bodies and the knowledge in their heads. A man named Luke Estrada walked up to Danny. He was young, maybe 25 years old, with strong hands and bright eyes. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about the old days," he said, "before machines did everything for us. She taught me how to make tools from stone. I never thought I would need to use that knowledge." "Can you really do that?" Danny asked. Luke nodded. "I can try." Megan was already walking in a wide circle around the group, her eyes scanning the land. She had been a scout before becoming a ship's officer, trained to read terrain and spot danger. There is a river to the east, she called out. I can see trees along its banks. Water means life. We should go there. Dr. Hartley bent down and picked up a leaf from one of the purple plants. He smelled it carefully, then touched it to his tongue with just the tip. This one is not poisonous, he said slowly. I need time to study everything here. Some of these plants might be food. Some might be medicine. Some might kill us. I need to learn which is which. The first night was the hardest. They had no fire because they did not know how to make one. They huddled together for warmth as the twin suns set and darkness covered the land. Strange sounds came from the distant animal calls that no human had ever heard before. Children pressed their faces against their parents' chests and tried not to cry. Danny stood at the edge of the group and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the Watchers were looking down at them. They expected humans to fail. They expected panic and fighting and death. They had seen it happen to thousands of other species. But Danny remembered his grandfather's stories about the old days on Earth. He remembered tales of ice ages and floods and famines. He remembered how humans had crossed frozen lands and endless oceans with nothing but their courage and their cleverness. They had built cities from mud and stone. They had tamed fire and wild animals and the very forces of nature itself. The Watchers thought they had taken everything from the humans. But they had not taken the most important things. They had not taken memory. They had not taken knowledge. They had not taken the stubborn will to survive that lived in every human heart. Danny turned back to his people. In the darkness, he could see Megan organizing groups for the morning. He could see Luke gathering stones and testing their edges. He could see Dr. Hartley making notes in the dirt with a stick. Already, they were beginning to work. We will survive this, Danny said to himself. We have survived worse. And somewhere above, the Watchers recorded their first observation. The humans have not collapsed. They are organizing. This is unexpected. Continue monitoring. The tests have begun. 3 weeks had passed since the humans fell from the sky. The Watchers expected to see bodies by now. They expected to see fighting over food and water. They expected the weak to die and the strong to turn savage. This was what always happened. This was what they had seen with the Varathi, the Kellerans, the Mindax, and 1,000 other species across 10,000 years. But the humans were different. Megan Price walked through the tall grass with 5 other scouts behind her. She moved slowly and carefully, her eyes missing nothing. Every rock, every plant, every mark in the soil told her something. She had spent her whole life learning to read the land, and now that skill was more valuable than gold. There, she said, pointing to a patch of bent grass. Something large passed through here. Maybe one of those 6-legged animals we saw near the river. It was moving toward the mountains. One of the younger scouts, a woman named Tara Cole, wrote down everything Megan said. They had no paper, so she used flat pieces of bark and a stick dipped in dark mud. Every observation became a record. Every record became knowledge. Every piece of knowledge might save a life. When Megan returned to the camp that evening, she found Luke Estrada sitting in the middle of a circle of people. He held a stone in his hands, and he was showing everyone how to shape it into a blade. His movements were slow and careful. Each strike of stone against stone sent small flakes flying through the air. You have to hit it at the right angle, Luke explained. Too steep, and the stone will break. Too flat, and nothing will happen. My grandmother made me practice for months before I got it right. But you will learn faster. You have to. Danny watched from a distance. 3 weeks ago, these people had lived in a world of machines and comfort. They had never needed to make anything with their hands. Now they sat in the dirt and learned ancient skills that their distant ancestors had used 100,000 years ago. It was strange, But it was also beautiful. Dr. Ben Hartley came running up to Danny with excitement on his face. In his hands, he held several plants with thick green stems and small yellow flowers. "Captain, I have been testing these for days. They are safe to eat. The leaves taste bitter, but they have good nutrition. And look at these seeds. They are similar to grain. We can plant them. We can grow food. Are you sure they are safe?" Danny asked. "I tested them on myself first," Hartley said. "Small amounts, then larger amounts. I watched for any bad reactions. There were none. I believe we have found our first crop." This was how the humans worked. They did not rush forward blindly. They watched, they tested, they learned. Every day brought new knowledge. Every piece of knowledge made them stronger. Katie Navarro had found clay deposits near the Eastern River, just as Megan had predicted. Now she led teams of workers who dug the clay from the ground and carried it back to camp in woven baskets. The baskets themselves were a victory. Lisa Dominguez had figured out how to weave them from long grass stems after watching how birds built their nests. "We can build real shelters with this clay," Katie explained to her team. "Mix it with grass for strength. Let it dry in the sun. It will be hard like stone. My grandfather built houses this way in the old country. He said it was the best way to build." The first clay house went up in 5 days. It was small and simple, just 4 walls and a roof, but it kept out the wind and the rain. When the colonists gathered inside for the first time, some of them cried. It felt like home. High above the planet, the Watchers sent their observations to the consortium. The humans continued to survive. They have developed tools, shelter construction, and food cultivation in less than 1 standard month. They share resources without conflict. They teach each other skills freely. This behavior does not match our models. Request additional monitoring resources." The consortium replied with interest. "Approved. This species is worth watching." On the ground, the humans knew nothing about the aliens studying them. They were too busy working, learning, and building. Every day brought new challenges, and every day they found new solutions. Nate Rees had been a soldier before joining the colony mission. Now he organized the first hunting parties. He studied the animals that lived on the plains, their habits, their movements, their weaknesses. The 6-legged creatures that looked like deer were fast, but they always ran toward the river when scared. Nate used this knowledge to set traps, made from bent trees and woven vines. The first successful hunt brought meat back to the camp. Lisa Dominguez took charge of preparing it. She had been a chef on the ship, and she understood food better than anyone. She discovered that certain plants could be used as salt. She learned that smoking the meat over a slow fire would preserve it for weeks. Every meal became a little experiment, and every experiment made the next meal better. But it was not just about survival. Danny noticed something else happening among his people. They were starting to smile again. Children played games in the dirt. Adults told stories around the fires at night. Someone had made a drum from stretched animal skin, and the sound of music filled the evening air. Megan sat down next to Danny one night and watched the dancers moving in the firelight. "Do you know what the Watchers got wrong?" she asked. "What?" "They thought taking our machines would break us. But we are not our machines. We are something older, something stronger." She pointed at the dancers, the storytellers, the children laughing in the darkness. "This is what we are. This is what we have always been. Creatures that refuse to give up." Danny nodded slowly. She was right. The Watchers had taken their technology, but they could not take 10,000 generations of human history. They could not take the knowledge passed down from parent to child across countless ages. They could not take the spirit that had carried humanity from caves to cities to the stars themselves. "We're just getting started," Danny said, and across the camp, Luke Estrada finished another stone blade and handed it to a young boy who had never held a tool before. The boy looked at it with wonder in his eyes. "Now you try," Luke said with a smile. The humans were learning. The humans were building. The humans were doing what they had always done. They were surviving. 2 months had passed since the fall. The collection of clay houses and grass shelters now had a name, Haven. The name had come from a young girl who said the place made her feel safe, like a haven from the storm. The name stuck, and now everyone used it. Danny stood in the center of Haven and looked around at what his people had built. There were 32 buildings now, arranged in neat rows around a central square. Smoke rose from cooking fires. The sound of hammering filled the air as workers shaped new tools. Children ran between the houses, playing games and laughing. It looked like a small village from old Earth, and in many ways, it was. The humans had created a government too. A council of 7 people, chosen by everyone, made the big decisions. Danny led the council, though he had not wanted the job. Megan was there too, along with Katie, Dr. Hartley, Luke, and 2 others, a former teacher named Grace Wong and an old farmer named Pedro Santos, who remembered how his family had worked the land back on Earth. "We need to talk about the food situation," Pedro said during one meeting. "Dr. Hartley's grain plants are growing well, but we will not have a harvest for at least 2 more months. Our stored meat will not last that long." "Then we hunt more," Nate suggested from his spot near the door. He was not on the council, but he attended every meeting. "The herds have moved farther away," Megan said. "They are learning to avoid us. We need to find new food sources." This was the human way. Every problem led to discussion. Every discussion led to ideas. Every idea was tested and improved until it worked. No one person had all the answers, but together they could solve almost anything. Dr. Hartley stood up with a smile. "I have been studying the river. There are fish in it, or something like fish. They have scales and fins and swim in groups. I believe we can catch them if we build the right tools." Luke's eyes lit up. "Fishing nets. I know how to make hooks from bone. We can do this." Within a week, Haven had its first fishing operation. The river fish tasted strange at first, but Lisa found ways to cook them that made everyone ask for more. Food security improved. People stopped looking thin and worried. But the humans faced a more dangerous challenge on the 43rd night. Nate was on watch when he heard the sounds low growling from the darkness beyond the firelight. He grabbed his spear and shouted an alarm. Within moments, other defenders rushed to his side with torches and weapons. The creatures that emerged from the shadows were terrifying. They stood as tall as a man's chest, with 6 powerful legs, long teeth, and eyes that glowed yellow in the night. There were at least 12 of them, and they moved together like a hunting pack. "Hold the line," Nate shouted. "Do not let them break through." The battle was short but fierce. The humans fought with spears and clubs and fire. The predators were strong and fast, but they had never faced creatures that worked together so perfectly. Every time one human fell back, another stepped forward. Every time a predator attacked, 2 humans struck back. When it was over, 3 colonists were injured. 1 predator was dead, and the rest had fled into the darkness. Dr. Carla Vega, the ship's physician, rushed to help the wounded. She had no machines, no medicines, no proper bandages. She had only her knowledge and her hands. "Bring me clean water and those purple leaves I showed you yesterday," she ordered. "The ones that smell like mint. They have properties that fight infection." The injured colonists survived. All 3 of them. Dr. Vega cleaned their wounds with boiled water, applied the healing leaves, and stitched the deepest cuts with thread made from plant fibers. She stayed awake for 2 days, watching for signs of fever or infection. When the danger passed, she finally allowed herself to sleep. The watchers recorded this too. The humans demonstrated coordinated defense behavior. Casualty rate was lower than any previous observation. Medical treatment was provided using local resources. All injured subjects survived. This has never happened before. Species continues to exceed projected outcomes. After the attack, Nate organized Haven's first real defense force. He trained volunteers in fighting techniques. He designed walls and barriers to protect the village. He created a system of watch posts that would give early warning of any approaching danger. "We cannot stop all the predators," he told Danny, "but we can make them afraid of us. We can make attacking Haven more trouble than it is worth." Katie worked with him to build the walls. She had been an engineer on the ship, designing complex systems with computers and machines. Now she designed with sticks and clay and her own two hands. The principles were the same: balance, strength, structure. Only the materials had changed. The wall went up around Haven in 3 weeks. It was not tall, but it was strong. The predators came back twice more, but they never got inside. After the third attempt, they stopped coming altogether. The humans had become too dangerous to hunt. Meanwhile, life inside Haven continued to grow. Grace Wong started a school for the children. She had no books, no computers, no learning tools. She taught by talking, by drawing in the sand, by making up songs and stories that contained important lessons. The children learned math by counting seeds. They learned reading by tracing letters in clay tablets. "Education is survival," Grace told Danny one evening. "If we do not teach our children everything we know, all of this will be lost in one generation. Knowledge is the most important thing we can give them." Danny nodded. He was beginning to understand something important. Humans did not just survive, they built. They created. They passed on what they learned to the next generation, who would add their own knowledge and pass it on again. It was an endless chain stretching back thousands of years. And now Haven was adding new links. Dr. Hartley's grain was growing tall in the fields. Luke's workshop produced better tools every week. Katie's buildings stood strong against wind and rain. Nate's defenders kept the village safe. Lisa's kitchen fed everyone well. Grace's school prepared the children for the future, and the watchers kept watching, kept recording, and kept wondering what made this species so different from all the others that had come before. The cold came slowly at first, like a thief creeping through the night. The twin suns rose later each day and set earlier each evening. The purple grasses on the plains turned brown and dry. The animals that had roamed freely began to disappear, moving to warmer places or hiding in underground burrows. Winter was coming to Kethrynine, and the humans of Haven had never faced anything like it. Then he called a council meeting on the day. The first frost appeared on the ground. The white crystals covered every surface, making the village look like something from a fairy tale. But there was no magic here, only danger. "We have stored food for maybe 3 months," Pedro reported. His voice was heavy with worry. "If winter lasts longer than that, we will be in trouble." "Katie, how are the buildings?" Danny asked. Katie shook her head slowly. "They will hold against normal cold, but I do not know what normal means here. We need to make them stronger. Better insulation. More heating." "Heating means fire," Luke said. "Fire means fuel. We need to gather as much wood as we can before the snows come." The humans had learned about the snows from watching the sky. Thick gray clouds gathered on the horizon, moving closer each day. They had never seen snow on this planet, but they knew it was coming. And they knew they were not ready. What followed was a race against time. Every person in Haven who could work did work. Teams went out to gather wood and brought back mountains of dried branches and fallen trees. Others stuffed grass and animal fur into the walls of the buildings to keep the heat inside. Katie designed clay ovens that could burn slowly through the night, keeping each house warm. The first snow fell on a quiet morning. Danny stepped outside and watched the white flakes drift down from the gray sky. They were beautiful, like tiny dancers spinning through the air. They were also deadly. The temperature dropped faster than anyone expected, and the snow kept coming for 3 days straight. When it finally stopped, Haven was buried under a white blanket that reached up to a grown man's waist. The world had become silent and strange. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Inside the houses, families huddled together around their small fires. The food stores shrank each day. The hunting parties could not go out. The snow was too deep, and the prey had vanished. Some people began to lose hope. And then came the hardest blow of all. A man named Chris Delgado had been quiet for weeks. He had lost his wife and daughter in the chaos of the landing. He worked hard, never complained, and always helped others. But inside, his heart was breaking. On the 20th day of winter, he walked out into the snow and did not come back. They found his body the next morning, frozen beneath a tree near the edge of the village. Danny stood over the grave. They dug in the frozen ground and felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him. This was his fault. He had been so focused on building walls and storing food that he had forgotten something important. Survival was not just about the body. It was about the soul too. Megan understood this better than anyone. She had seen the dark clouds settling over Haven. The way people stopped talking and laughing, the way they moved through their days like ghosts. She knew that if they did not act soon, more people would follow Chris into the snow. "We need to give them something to live for," she told Danny that night. "Not just food and warmth. We need hope. We need joy. We need to remind them why life is worth living." Together, they organized the first Haven Festival. It happened on the longest night of winter, when the darkness lasted for 18 hours and the cold bit like a living thing. But inside the largest building, fires burned bright, and every person in Haven gathered together. Tara Cole, one of the scouts, had secretly been making a drum from stretched animal hide. She played it now, and the rhythm filled the room like a heartbeat. Other people joined in, clapping and singing songs from Earth that their grandparents had taught them. Someone produced a flute made from hollow bone, and music rose up to dance with the firelight. The children performed the play that Grace had helped them create. It told the story of Haven, how they had fallen from the sky, how they had learned to survive, how they had built a home in this strange land. When the young actors took their final bows, the audience cheered so loud that people outside could hear it through the walls. Lisa and her cooking team had prepared a special meal using the best food from their stores. It was a sacrifice. Every bite meant less for the days ahead, but it was worth it. People ate and laughed and told stories. They remembered the past and dreamed about the future. They held each other close and whispered words of love and comfort. Danny walked among his people and felt something shift inside his chest. For the first time in weeks, he saw smiles on their faces. He heard laughter echoing off the clay walls. He watched couples dancing in the firelight and children falling asleep in their parents' arms. Chris Delgado was gone. They would never forget him. But his death would not be the end of Haven. It would be a reminder of how important it was to take care of each other, not just their bodies, but their hearts and minds too. The Watchers recorded this too, though they did not fully understand what they were seeing. The humans are engaging in non-survival behavior during a resource shortage. They are wasting food and energy on activities that provide no practical benefit. Yet their psychological indicators have improved significantly. This is illogical. Request clarification from Xenopsychology Division. The clarification never came. The Watchers had never seen a species that understood something the humans knew in their bones. That hope is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Without it, even the strongest body will fail. Winter lasted for 4 more months. It was hard and cold and hungry. 12 more people died, from sickness, from accidents, from the simple exhaustion of fighting against nature every single day. But Haven did not break. The festivals continued, smaller now, but no less important. The music kept playing. The stories kept being told. And when the first warmth of spring finally touched the frozen ground, 803 humans were still alive. They had lost friends and family. They had suffered more than they ever imagined possible. But they had survived. They had done what humans always do. They had endured. Spring arrived like a gift from the universe. The snow melted into streams that rushed down from the mountains, filling the river with fresh water. The frozen ground softened and turned green with new growth. Animals emerged from their hiding places, blinking in the warm sunlight. And the humans of Haven stepped outside their winter shelters and lifted their faces toward the twin suns. 1 year had passed since they fell from the sky. Danny stood on the hill above the village and looked down at what his people had built. Haven was no longer a desperate collection of mud huts. It was a real community, with streets and squares and buildings that would last for generations. Stone walls surrounded the center, strong enough to stop any predator. Fields stretched out beyond the walls, planted with grain and vegetables that would feed them through the seasons to come. There was a school where children learned to read and write and think. There was a hospital where Dr. Vega treated the sick and trained new healers. There was a workshop where Luke and his students created tools from metal they had learned to smelt from mountain ore. There was a council hall where decisions were made by discussion and vote, not by force or fear. Most importantly, there was hope. Danny could see it in the way people walked and talked. He could hear it in their laughter and their songs. The long winter had tested them, but they had passed the test. They knew now that they could survive anything. Pedro Santos walked up the hill to stand beside Danny. The old farmer was smiling, something Danny had not seen much during the dark winter months. "The first crops will be ready soon," Pedro said. "Better than I expected. This soil is good for growing things." "Like us," Danny said quietly. Pedro laughed. "Yes, Captain. Like us." The scouting party returned at midday with strange news. Megan rushed to find Danny, her face flushed with excitement and something else, maybe fear. "There's a ship coming down from the sky," she said. "The same kind of ship that brought us here." Danny felt his heart beat faster. The watchers were returning. By the time he reached the village square, everyone had gathered. They stood in quiet groups, watching the sky as the alien vessel descended through the clouds. It moved slowly, gracefully, landing in an open field just outside the walls. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a door opened, and a figure emerged. The alien called Keleth was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that seemed to look in different directions at once. It wore robes of silver and gold that flowed like water when it moved. Behind it, several other aliens of different shapes and sizes followed, but Keleth was clearly the leader. Danny walked forward to meet them. Megan was at his side, and behind them came the rest of the council: Katie, Luke, Dr. Hartley, Grace, Pedro, and Nate, with his hand resting on the stone axe at his belt. Behind the council stood all 803 survivors, arranged in neat rows, their faces calm and proud. Keleth stopped a few steps away from Danny and spoke. The alien's translator device hummed as it converted the sounds into words humans could understand. "1 year ago, we placed your species on this world. We took everything from you, your machines, your tools, your comforts. We commanded you to survive without aid." Danny said nothing. He waited. "We expected you to fail," Keleth continued. "Every species we have tested has failed." The Vorathi lasted 3 days before they turned on each other. The Kelurans survived for 2 months before starvation took them. The Mindax built shelters, but they could not adapt when the seasons changed. In 10,000 years of observation, no species has done what you have done." The alien paused, and its 4 eyes focused on Danny for the first time. "We expected to find bones and ruins. Instead, we find a thriving settlement with agriculture, medicine, education, and governance. You have not merely survived. You have built a civilization." "We are human," Danny said simply. "This is what we do." Calith was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, its voice was different, softer, almost curious. "How? We took everything from you. How did you do this?" Megan stepped forward to answer. "You did not take everything. You took our machines, but you did not take our knowledge. Our ancestors learned to survive in ice ages and deserts and jungles. They crossed oceans without knowing what lay beyond. They built cities when they had nothing but mud and stone. Every human alive carries that knowledge in their blood." Katie spoke next. "I am an engineer. I design things that work. It does not matter if I use computers or clay, the principles are the same. Gravity does not change. Water still flows downhill. Structures still need strong foundations. My mind is my most important tool, and you could not take that." Luke held up one of his stone axes. "My grandmother taught me the old ways because she said knowledge should never be lost. I did not understand why it mattered back then. Now I do. Everything we know was learned by someone, somewhere, and passed down through generations. We are not starting from nothing. We are standing on the shoulders of 1,000 ancestors." Dr. Vega stepped forward too. "I am a healer. On the ship, I had machines that could diagnose any disease and medicines that could cure almost anything. Here, I have plants and clean water and my own 2 hands. It is harder, but it is not impossible. The body wants to heal itself. I just help it along." Grace smiled gently. "I am a teacher. I teach the children so they will know what we know. And someday, they will teach their children. This is how we survive, not just as individuals, but as a species. We pass on what we learn." Nate crossed his arms over his chest. "And I am a warrior. I protect the others so they can do their work. Every person here has a role. Every role is important. Together, we are stronger than any of us alone." Danny looked at Keleth with steady eyes. "You asked how we did this. The answer is simple. We did it together. We shared our knowledge. We helped each other. We refused to give up, even when everything seemed hopeless. That is who we are. That is what humans have always been." Keleth was silent for a very long time. The other aliens behind it shifted and whispered among themselves, but Keleth remained still, thinking. Finally, the alien spoke. "The Consortium of Watchers has observed 4,217 species across this galaxy. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have seen creatures that could tear mountains apart with their bare hands, and creatures that could calculate the movements of stars in their minds. But we have never seen anything like you." Keleth made a gesture that might have been respect. "Your trial is concluded. You have proven yourselves worthy beyond any measure we have known. Your technology will be returned to you. Your ship will be repaired. You may leave this world if you choose." Danny looked back at Haven, at the buildings they had raised with their hands, the fields they had planted with their sweat, the community they had forged through suffering and hope. Then he looked at his people, and he saw the answer in their eyes. "We will stay," he said. "This is our home now. We built it. We earned it." Keleth nodded slowly. "Then stay, build, grow, and know this. The Consortium extends to humanity an invitation, not as subjects of observation, but as partners. Your species has shown us something we thought impossible. You have reminded us what it means to truly survive." Danny allowed himself a small smile. We will consider your invitation. But first, we have crops to harvest and children to teach and walls to strengthen. We have a world to tame. Caliph turned and walked back toward its ship. At the door, it paused and looked back. We will return in 1 year. We are eager to see what you build next. The alien ship rose into the sky and vanished among the stars. And the humans of Haven returned to their work, planting, building, learning, growing. Doing what they had always done, Megan stood beside Danny as the sun set over the mountains. The sky turned orange and gold, painting the village in warm light. Children played in the square below. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Somewhere, someone was singing. Do you think they understand us now? Megan asked. Danny shook his head. Maybe not completely, but they are learning. He watched his people move through the village, each one doing their part, each one contributing to something larger than themselves. And so are we. Every day, we learn a little more about who we are and what we can become. He turned to face her. The Watchers thought they were testing us, but really, they just gave us a chance to remember what we have always known. We are human. We survive. We adapt. We build. Megan smiled. And we never, ever give up. The twin suns dipped below the horizon. And the stars came out, the same stars that humans had looked up at for 100,000 years, dreaming of the day they would walk among them. That day had come. And against all odds, humanity had proven worthy of the journey. The story of Haven was just beginning.